guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I want to talk about coffee. I don't know if I've actually mentioned this in any of my videos before, but I really love coffee. I love drinking coffee. When I'm not drinking coffee, I'm sort of usually thinking about drinking coffee, or when I can have my next cup of coffee. And when we lived in the apartment, space was a real premium. Since we moved into this house, actually space is still a real premium for us. However, I have 3 distinct ways of making coffee available to me in this house. That's a testament just to how much I love coffee. So for my video today, I'm actually going to make those 3 cups of coffee in those 3 distinct ways, and I'm going to tell you guys which way I think is the best and what I think is the nicest cup of coffee you can make. I'm going to use the same type of coffee for 2 out of the 3 ways I make the coffee. One of the ways I have to use a different type of coffee, and I'll explain that when I get to it. But for the majority of these cups of coffee, I'm going to be using these beans right here, and these are Lavazza beans, and it's the Quality Rosa coffee. And so this is a medium strength coffee, and it's one that I really like. One quick disclaimer that I have to make is that this video is in no way sponsored. I will be talking a lot about products and like brands of coffee and brands of coffee makers and that kind of thing. These are just products that I have in the house, and they're products that I really like, but I'm not getting anything from any of these companies to talk about any of these products. For this video, I'm actually using beans. So these are the beans here. They're very nice. It just means that I have to go and grind these up now. So for my first cup of coffee that I want to make, I'm going to use something called an AeroPress, and this is it right here, or actually to be more accurate, this is it right here. It comes primarily in these 2 parts, and when you get it, you get this stuff too. So what we have here is, this is a funnel to help you not spill coffee. I generally just use it for storage. This is also a stand that comes with it. You get an AeroPress branded stirrer and an AeroPress branded scoop. Actually, this isn't branded, it's just a scoop. I'm going to be using this scoop for all of the coffee that I have to measure out in all of the different types of coffee that I'm making today, but this came with the AeroPress. So in order to make a cup of coffee with the AeroPress, all you need to do is just boil your kettle. I've just boiled mine a second ago. And then you take one of these paper filters and you put it inside the base of the AeroPress here, and you just lay it flat. So once you've got the filter and the base, you just put the base onto the AeroPress like so, and you put the AeroPress onto your cup of coffee. And now it's just a matter of putting the coffee into the AeroPress. But before I do that, I need to grind my beans. So now my coffee is ground, and the way AeroPress recommend making the coffee is that you use 2 full scoops of the coffee, which is what I measured into this, so I can just pour this whole thing in now. So once the coffee's in the AeroPress, I just level this off. I just give it a shake so that this is level and I can see what I'm doing. And you'll see here on the front of the AeroPress there's numbers, so it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they recommend that you just pour the water into the AeroPress until it gets to the top of the 2, thereabouts, and then you just stir it. So you just stir it for about 10 seconds, and then you plunge. So this part of the AeroPress just goes in here like so, and you just press this down. And that's it. That can be difficult to press down because you get air pressure resistance, but once the air starts to force through the base here, it usually frees itself up, and when you're done, you just have a really nice cup of espresso. Now the way I like to drink this is, once I've done this, I'll just top this up with the hot water from the kettle that I've just boiled. And then after I've topped it up to a measure I'm happy with, I just take some cold water from the tap. I usually just run it straight in from the tap, but I don't have to keep getting up and down. So I've got this measuring jug with cold water here. And I just pour this in. And I do that just so the water is a bit cooler and I don't burn my mouth when I drink the coffee. Oh yeah, that tastes so good. So this would be generally the type of coffee that I would make first thing in the morning. It's quite strong. There's absolutely zero bitterness to it, which you can sometimes get with black coffee. And it's really smooth and it's really, really nice. The other thing as well, and this kind of amazes me, is that you get a lot of flavor from the coffee. Like the water and the coffee don't get much time to interact with the AeroPress, yet it tastes like they've been brewing for a while. So it's just really, really good. It's really, really nice. And yeah, this is just a lovely cup of coffee. And I think anyone who likes their coffee, makes a coffee like this with an AeroPress, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with it. So I'll just leave this cup of coffee over here for the time being. And I want to talk now about the next cup of coffee that I want to make. And I would be using a French press for this. So this French press is a single cup of coffee French press. I'm still going to be using my Lavazza beans. And just for the purposes of as much consistency as possible, I'm going to put the same amount of coffee into this as I would put into the AeroPress. So the first thing I need to do again is just grind up some more beans. So I've just boiled my kettle again. I also scalded the French press because with this it's better to just throw a little bit of boiling water into it, swish it around and throw it out before you put your coffee in. And the reason you do that is just to heat this so that it stays hot for longer, because unlike the AeroPress, you can't plunge this straight away. You need to let this brew for a few minutes first. And now we just pour the water in. So the kettle's just boiled. I tend to pour the water in up to just the top of this metal ring here. And then I would always just put the top of the French press on top like so. And now I just need to leave that to sit and brew. So I'm gonna actually set a timer for 3 minutes on my phone. And as soon as those 3 minutes are up, we can plunge this cup of coffee and see what it tastes like. It's time to plunge this cup of coffee. And it's done. One thing just to mention really quickly, I plunge that quite slowly, and the reason for that is that I've found in the past when I try and plunge these too fast, air pressure builds up inside it and they spit and the coffee just comes out everywhere, and then you get like coffee granules in your coffee and it's never as nice, and you have a big mess to clean up as well. Now let's see what it tastes like. That is lovely. It's a little stronger than the AeroPress. There's a bit more of a coffee kick to it. But what I'd say as well is there's a hint of bitterness to it as well. Because sometimes when you leave the coffee to sit for too long and when it brews for too long, it can go quite bitter. And this is a little bit more bitter than it is in the AeroPress. They're both very similar. They're both very nice cups of coffee, but just this one has a little hint of bitterness that the AeroPress didn't have. So there's one more cup of coffee that I need to make and that I want to talk to you guys about. This one's a little bit different. I can't use my Lavazza beans for this one, and the reason for that is I'm using an espresso machine. So I've got my espresso machine here. This is a really, really convenient way to make a cup of coffee. So as I say, this one will be the most different because I'm using a whole other type of coffee. But in order to make coffee out of the Nespresso machine, I just press either of these two buttons on top here and they start flashing green. So while they're flashing green, I just lift up this handle here. I have an espresso pod here, and this is an Arpeggio, which as far as I'm aware, this is a mid-strength. It's the closest I can get to my Lavazza and what my Lavazza tastes like. And it's really, really simple. You just drop the Nespresso pod in like so, you close this in, you put your cup in underneath the nozzle, and then once this stops flashing, which it has now, I just press the button. So clearly, as you can tell, this is the noisiest way I have of making coffee, and this is not one that I want to be doing if I'm up really, really early and I'm up before everybody else in the house, but it's not too bad. I'd say it's a toss-up between this or the AeroPress as to which one is the quickest, but they're both very convenient. But this coffee is just done now. As with the others, I just pour a bit of hot water in on top, just to bring the level up. And then I pour some cold water in, just so I don't burn my mouth. And now it's time to see what it tastes like. Okay, so the first thing I will say about that cup of coffee is it's not as strong as either of the French press or the AeroPress cups of coffee that I made. It's still a really, really nice cup of coffee. I would just prefer it a little bit stronger. There are stronger pods I can use that would get a stronger flavor, but in general what I found in making coffee with all of these methods is that the Nespresso always gives me the weakest cup of coffee. Put this back to one side. So there's one more cup of coffee that I want to make for you guys, and that is using the AeroPress. So for this cup of coffee I use the AeroPress, but it's called the inverted method. So again, what I do is I start by putting a filter into the base of the AeroPress, and then I just leave it to one side for a while. I don't need that now for a few minutes. So what I need to do for this is I just insert the plunger into the top of the AeroPress, and I plunge it down to the top or the bottom of the number 4, which is here, and I leave it sitting upside down like so. But I just scoop the coffee into the AeroPress. Again, I just shake this so it's kind of level. I'm actually just going to lift this up a tiny bit. The reason being is I just want to get a little bit more water in. So I've actually moved this now so it's at the top of the 4 and not the bottom of the 4. And my kettle is just boiled, so I just pour water in. And give this another quick stir for another 10 seconds. And I put the lid on. So again, a little bit like the French press, I just leave this to brew inside the AeroPress for a couple of minutes. Not as long as the French press though. I'd say about a minute and a half is all I really need. So I'm just gonna go and set a quick timer for that now. And with this one, I just put the cup upside down on top of the AeroPress and I flip it, just like that. And then, now straight away, the difference is that I can feel with this is the AeroPress is a lot hotter than it is when I make it just the normal way. I'm just going to top this up a little bit. And then just put a dash of cold water into it then as well. So now all that I have left to do is to taste this cup of coffee and see what it's like. So it's very like the first cup of coffee. It's kind of like a combination of the first cup of coffee that I made with the AeroPress and the second cup of coffee that I made with the French press. It's a lot stronger in flavor than the first cup of coffee that I made with the AeroPress, but it's very, very smooth and it's really, really nice. It doesn't have that kind of like sharp bite of that acidic flavor that I often get with the French press. So that is a really, really nice cup of coffee that I have there. And again, like, I would just be very happy to just sit here and drink this for the rest of the afternoon. Okay, so I'm just going to take these 4 cups of coffee. They're all still quite warm, so I don't need to worry about reheating any of them. I'm just going to do a quick taste test and see which one I think is the nicest. But this was the first one and this was the last one. So this one is the AeroPress. This one is made in the French press. This is the Nespresso, and this is the AeroPress inverted method. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, the way I made them, Okay, so I think I have a winner. And for me, the one that I think is actually the nicest was the first one. In my opinion, that is the perfect cup of coffee. What I would say between these two, just very quickly, because they're both made in the AeroPress, is that they taste really, really similar. Just this one has a much stronger coffee flavor than this one. And while I do like a strong cup of coffee, I just feel that this tastes that little bit nicer. It's not as strong, but you get all of the flavor. I just think it's really, really nice. So it's the one that I'm gonna go for as the nicest. So my least favorite cup of coffee then is this one. The cup of coffee that I made in the French press. It's just that little bit of bitterness that you get with the French press that I don't like compared to the others. Like the 3 coffees that I made with the Lavazza almost taste identical. Like you know straight away that you're drinking the same type of coffee from all of them, and they're just made to slightly different strengths. This one is just not as nice as either of these two, and frankly it's not as nice as the Nespresso coffee either. The Nespresso coffee, I would say, is my second favorite out of all 3, and it's just, part of that is just it's so easy to make, because it's just you drop the pod in and it's kind of all done for you. In order to get the nicest cup of coffee, really, I would say use an AeroPress and make it the way they say you should make it. That for me is just perfect, and that's why I have that every single morning to start my day. So what is my favorite way to actually make the coffee? And again, I'd have to say probably the AeroPress standard method. It's just so simple. It's very mechanical, so it requires absolutely no thought to make. You just need to boil the kettle, and the longest part of the entire process is how long it takes the kettle to boil. So that's what I love about it, and that's why I like to have it in the morning. My 2 least favorite ways of making coffee are in the French press and the AeroPress inverted method. And the reason for that is simply that you have to wait for the coffee to brew. These 2 cups of coffee, in my opinion, are nicer than these 2 cups of coffee. So why would I wait longer for a cup of coffee that I'm going to like less? It just doesn't make sense to me. So for that reason, I don't really like making coffee in the French press that much, and I don't really like making the inverted method AeroPress cup of coffee either. So that's my video on how to get the best cup of coffee that you can. I think the AeroPress is the winner, hands down. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you like it. If you do, please give it a big thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. Also, I'm trying to do a little bit more with my Instagram and my Twitter. So if you want to see what I'm doing over there, please go and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'll leave my handles in the description of this video. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.